How's everybody this afternoon? Relieved that your evaluation is over, right? Well, I had a little flashback a few days ago when I was starting the program, starting to design, and I'm looking out into the design room and I'm seeing this sea of talent out there, thinking, what the heck am I doing? This is crazy. But we came up with some pretty cool designs, I think, today to share with you. So we can do it. And I've been doing floral design for a long time. I'm a third-generation florist. And I tried to escape it a couple of times, but obviously it hasn't worked out for me. I'm still a florist. But I'll give you a little brief history, my history. I worked in the family business. I grew up in the business, and that was in New Jersey. So I'm originally from New Jersey, or I should say Jersey. Anybody know that? Jersey, what exit? Growing up in the family business was a challenge, I thought. It was not always fun working with mom and dad, and then, so I tried to escape it a couple of times, like I said, and I needed some new challenges, so I got involved with AIFD about 15 years ago now. So I did, when I went through the process, I had to submit a portfolio, and I worked with a photographer for about a day and a half. And when my sister wrote out the check to the photographer, she said, "You better get in." So luckily, I passed that phase, and then I had to fly to Denver, and that was shortly right after. It was in October of 2001, right after September 11th, 2001. So luckily, I packed all of my tools in the suitcase, but coming back home, I left my knife in my back pocket. It's just habit, right? You just put your knife in your back pocket. So of course, I'm like, yeah, take it. I don't need it anymore. I did my evaluation. So I was inducted in where was I? San Diego in 2002 then. And so I had these little challenges that I gave myself throughout my career. So I got involved with AIFD, and then a few years ago, I got involved with, I thought I should try out for PFCI. Does anybody know what PFCI is? Professional Floral Communicator International. So that was a big challenge also, about a 12-page application. I had to submit all of my speaking engagements. The committee wants to know what my speaking credentials are as to the public or to the industry. Have I won any awards, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a long application. And then I had to submit a video also, so a sort of my audition video. And luckily, I did a presentation to a garden club that I had them videotape. And the committee, the PFCI committee, actually watched the video because they critiqued specifically some fumbles I made. And so they looked at some good points and not so good points. But I achieved that credential also. Then a few years ago, 2 years ago actually, I left the family business. That was my biggest challenge yet. I left the family business, the comfort and security of the family business, my friends, and what I knew daily in and out. My family at the New York Botanical Garden, I used to teach there. Well, I still do every now and then, but so I moved to Delaware to start my own business. So I've been in Delaware. Anybody ever hear of Delaware? It's the second smallest state in the Union. It's very tiny. So everybody has a handout with a little piece of saltwater taffy. I thought I'd share a little bit of my new hometown with everybody coming. So there's some saltwater taffy. If anybody wants more or didn't get a piece, I know my lovely assistant, Nicole, has some handy. But we're here today to talk about some elements and principles of design and a little bit more background about my knowledge of the elements and principles of design. I went to school for interior design and architecture. And I went to Syracuse University. That was 4 hours north of where I lived in New Jersey. And the goal was that I could get far away enough where I wouldn't have to come home for Valentine's Day. I studied interior design architecture, and I studied the elements and principles of design as it related to interiors. And then I left that industry for after a couple of years and got involved with floral design. And then that's where I realized, oh, this art form has the elements and principles of design. There's relations here also, just as in music. There's line and rhythm and balance with music and graphic arts and fashion design. So all these arts, they all relate. And you could see from the handout that we have, we're going to talk about specifically today, line, space, and accent. So we're going to talk about those elements and principles of design. And somebody had made a comment that, oh, it's nice paper. Well, when I got the handout printed, this is what they did. I don't know if you can see up there, but they put the staple on backwards as far as I'm concerned. The little clasp was at the front. And, I looked at it and I considered for a moment. I'm like, well, you did 120 of these backwards. And I'm like, because this should be the front, I thought. And I'm like, what a waste of resources and paper and whatnot. But I'm like, this is a design presentation. So I had them print it. I had to have them print it again. And they felt bad, so they printed it on heavier stock for you. So that just made my luggage and my shipping a lot heavier. So, but at least we have a nice handout. You can see here, there's the definition of line. We'll talk about line, and this is all right from our book, the AIFD Guide to Floral Design. Does everybody have this book? You should have it, because it's like our Bible, isn't it? I keep it in my design studio, and I refer to it all the time. Anything I need to know is right here about floral design, or the history, or if I need a fabric for a tablecloth, how long is it, or how wide does it have to be for a certain size table. So all of that, any information you need is in this book. So if you don't have it, then I highly recommend you get it. So all the information that I'm presenting today is right in this book also. So let's see. I want to start with which piece should I start with? I think we'll start over here. I don't like to start at one end and walk over to another end. So we'll walk back and forth. But I like this arrangement here. What do you think about this so far? Thank you. All of these arrangements, most of the arrangements are actually not complete yet. I would like to add a few things to them. I mean, they look pretty nice. I like the design here. There's a nice line, don't you think? The snapdragons have some really beautiful line, and you'll notice I've taken off the foliage off of the stems, so that accentuates the line, and you can see a nice, real clear line with a stem. And then we have some nice negative space also, the space in between the flowers. So the flowers are the positive space, and the negative space is the space in between the flowers. So sometimes, I think often, that negative space is just as important as the positive space. And we lost, I think commercially, we lost that with the sort of Martha Stewart mass-type compact designs. A lot of my clients love that. They love those round, full, lush, flower arrangements, which we can make in our flower shop, mass of hydrangea or any other sort of round mass flower, peonies, roses. They all look nice combined together and make a pretty composition. But when we're talking about art and line and negative space or positive space, then we want to have these sort of elements in mind. So we have also, I think, paying attention to the line, not only the line of the snapdragon, the stem itself, but look at how the curve of the snapdragon relates to each other within the composition too, because there's definitely a little curve to the tips of these. And this is Mother Nature too, isn't it? I mean, we don't always get the kind of curve that we are looking for, so we have to work with that. So it is important to pay attention to the curves and how they relate to each other within the composition. So has anybody worked with the wire mesh before? Yeah, there's Oasis is coming out with this wire mesh now. And this is a great decorative mechanic, right? This is a mechanic that can be seen. And I don't know if you can see from your point of view or the perspective, but I've taken some Mindolino sticks and woven them through the mesh, creating a little frame on the container itself. And then I've balled the mesh into the bowl, and that acts as my mechanics. So there's no floral foam in there, and it's okay if you can see that mesh. I think it kind of adds a nice little unexpected, little shiny element into the design, especially with the container, which is a ceramic sort of poured concrete looking container. So I like that contrast also. So we could talk about the elements and principles of design with all sorts of things, but texture certainly and contrast and whatnot with the container and relating to the other materials. So I've taken the Mindolino sticks and just formed a little grid there with them, a frame, and yeah, so I want to add some other things. I have these little beads also. I thought that these little sticky beads too, as a nice little accent also, we could add these into the center of the Gerber daisies, the little teal blue right into the center to just give a little bit of sparkle also. Sure, you could. My lovely assistant, Nicole, she's been great all weekend since I got in. Thank you, Nicole.
I'm supposed to remind you to give out your email address too.
Oh, I have to give. If anybody doesn't have the handout and wants a copy, just send me an email, okay? Do you want my email address? It's easy. It's ken@floralinspirations.us. That's the name of my business, my new business down in Delaware. So I have some few roses that I wanted to add into the grid also, just to give a little bit of height. Notice that the stems have been cleaned. There's no foliage on them. So we have good, clean, negative space. And just weave them right through. I have a little base of the grid of the wire. And notice there's a slight curve to these stems also, right? So it's important to pay attention to how the curve relates to each other within the composition. So I like, well, and see this one turned, but I like how the long stems, the line flowers, carry up, and your eye is drawn up in and then down into the base. So there's some beautiful basing technique in here as well. So there's a lot going on in this little design, isn't there? I'm also a very color-oriented designer, so I like to, you'll notice in most of these designs, they're simple color schemes that I think really work really well. What do you think of that one? Thank you. You can see it doesn't take a lot, right? Just a few roses to make a really nice statement, right? So in this piece here, I love these. These are cute little line flowers, right? Very structural, though. Look at how the line is created here with a bent equisetum, the horsetail here. So it comes up and then creates a nice horizontal line. These lines are very static lines. They're very, very rigid and very architectural. And same thing with this one right here. We have the horizontal lines, the pussy willow, creating in this piece, then can be combined. It could be kept separate. They look nice as one separate unit, don't you think? But then they also work really beautifully together. And that could make a beautiful statement in any sort of corporate setting. And they're low paved flowers here, so they're nice and long-lasting. But we have beautiful elements balanced here, the horizontal lines, the vertical lines over here with the equisetum. I love this. This is my favorite Lycopodium. And I like the balance too here, the curved lines of the Milky Way and these over here, the calathea leaves, which actually were inverted. The pattern of that leaf is on the back, and so now we're seeing the red here. So that's a very interesting use of the material. What do you think of these? They're very architectural, don't you think? Very structural sort of lines, very static lines, very linear, whether it is horizontal or vertical. Let's see. We're going to go over to this table, Nicole, all right? Now, we have something quite different with this piece, don't we? With the very dramatic lines, the flax leaves that are bent, and I shined the leaves, so they give a nice little shine here. So there's a lot of movement in this design, don't you think? Vertical lines are really missing. We don't have a lot of the structure that we saw in these pieces over here. So beautiful movement still, negative space also though, right? With clean lines of the little poppy pods there. I love those poppy pods also.
What am I pulling for you? Is it yours or
That's okay. I got it. Don't worry. So again, some great basing techniques with the treated sponge mushrooms here. This is, I hate mushrooms. This is the only way I like mushrooms, right here, like this in my designs. Again, we have a color combination: the greens, the purples, the oranges, and it all works well with the container, don't you think? What do you think of that? Thank you. I also like grouping the materials because I think that makes a much stronger impact. So there's strong impact with the carnations down here, the lilies, the mushrooms, and balance with the poppy pods over here. So clean lines, makes very simple, but the pattern of the flax leaves and then having them bent really gives a lot of movement in this design. I also teach for AIFD on their online classes. Has anybody ever taken the online classes? The AIFD online classes? Anybody? Few people? One person? Maybe I've... Oh, okay. I don't know about that. Well, I do teach a few of their courses, and one of the questions in the discussion forums that we talk about is in the design techniques and applications is a technique called baling and bundling and binding. So what I've done here is we've baled a few of these little equisetum clusters right here, and we've bound them with the decorative wire, the wool-coated wire here. So these will make, I think, a really nice accent in this design. So we just have a couple of these little bales we could put right in here. And something like that makes a really nice accent, don't you think? So yeah, one of the questions is, what other sorts of materials can you use to make a bale, and what types of materials can you use to bind those bales? And so it's always fun to hear what all the students' ideas are. And I like to stretch their imaginations, so when we take that course together, we'll have fun with that. Over here, I had some help with this one. What do you think about this one? That's cool, isn't it? Can anybody identify the lines in this? Certainly, we have some beautiful lines with the, let me move these spheres out of the way. With the dogwood's coming up, some beautiful lines here, and really caging all of the, and framing all of the beautiful work that's inside. So you have to come up later on after the program and see the beautiful pattern that was created with the carnations, the moss, and the little chrysanthemums down in the underneath the Gerber daisies here. So we've got some beautiful clean lines, right? And then a little bit of accent with the orange wool. Isn't that cool? What could we use besides the orange wool, though? I mean, there's all sorts of materials that we could use if we don't have this. You could use just some yarn that you have, or there's tons of that decorative wire now that's out there. So all sorts of just little accents of some other sort of element that will sort of just add some interest to your composition. So in the Floral Design Guide, AIFD design book, it says accent is could be just some ribbon tied on a handle, or just a little accent, or it could be just even a little flower even. So just something to set everything else off, but adding some visual interest and making your design just a step up from every day. What do you think? What do you think of this? Thank you. All right, I think we're going to go back over here. Nicole, we're going to go back over here now. All right, look at this. We'll go over here. These are heavy to lift, so I'm not going to lift this one. But again, this is a design where you want to come in and take a look at the basing techniques here. We have some beautiful pave, and so you see this first and foremost, the iris, the beautiful iris, and again, how the color relates, the yellow crispidia picking up the yellow from the center of the iris, and then even the yellow of the yarrow bring down here. So we have all these different levels. So there's a lot of movement going on in here also. It may be a little bit busy with the lycopodium, but you could still see the clean lines of the crispidia. And I've taken most of the leaves off of the iris, so you could see the iris. And again, these iris aren't straight, they curve up, so they curve up and out of the design and brings your eye up, and then it kind of leads your eye down into the center, into the basing material here. So there's a lot going on in this design, isn't there? Especially the ring of fresh grapevine too. So it has some fresh grapevine, so that creates a nice base. Also, even widens the base, doesn't it? So there's a lot of line going on, whether it's the rings of the grapevine, or the line of the crispidia, the line of the iris. So there's a lot going on in there, and even you could kind of see maybe there's little clusters of equisetum in here also that have been bound with the wire. Gives just a little bit of sparkle also, just another little accent, right? Just another little accent that adds a little bit of shimmer. And I like that we have that wire. It kind of brings in the metal from the container also. So there's all of those relating elements going on. You can't see way over there, but you'll take a look a little bit later, okay? So we have these beautiful Vanda orchids, and we can add these into the equisetum. The equisetum has a little membrane that grows across the material right through the reed, and it can hold water, and so that acts as a nice little natural water tube. And we can just add these in here and bring that color up a little bit further. So we have all these little elements. That one's not going in. Different layers of color. And that creates a beautiful sort of line as well. I'll turn that around.
That's cool.
Pretty, huh? Thank you.
Transforms it.
Do, 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 do. Get them in there. Wow, that looks cool, doesn't it? Oh, I like that. Thank you. That's pretty. Oh, there's so much we could talk about, isn't there? The texture, look at the texture of this. We have to save this for another program. Texture, I love texture. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see, let's go back over here. We'll talk about this piece for a little bit. We'll talk on this side. I'll get this one out of the way a little bit. This piece is really beautiful. Again, very structural, right? I like the combination of different lines in this piece here. We have the grid system of the red dogwood here. So it's all woven together, and it's very, very linear, very static lines, aren't they? They're very, very architectural. And then we have the contrast with the very dynamic lines here curving around with the calla lilies that have very pliable stem. So you can massage the stem gently and get a nice curve, and they're all bound together in here onto the grid system. And also in combination with the calla lilies, we have the allium, the little drumstick allium. So these stems are very pliable also, and create a nice line going all around. It's like a nice little cyclone, right? That you guys get in the Midwest, that I was probably flying over on my way here, that made my trip so bumpy. But it's a great great lines here, aren't they? What do you think? Can you see? Can you see the lines? Yeah. So lines going all the way around, all the way up and down. So there's nice contrast with the vertical lines, horizontal lines, dynamic lines, and static lines here. And this is definitely a piece where you want to come in and get a bird's eye view, because you look down into this design and there's such beautiful pavéing techniques in here. Again, groupings of materials, status, the yarrow, equisetum, and so on and so forth. And it creates, again, such great texture. And like really visual impact when all of these materials are grouped together. Creates a beautiful little, a great pattern. So I thought with this piece, we'd add a few of these wires, because I love this wire too. And again, it will bring the color up. There's that purple that is at the base and going around a little bit with the allium. So I thought, let's add a little bit of bling, a little bit of accent, right? Because we were talking about accent also, and how you can add a little bit of accent. And this wire has a little notch kicked out of it. I'm sure you all know that. This diamond wire. And yeah, thank you, Nicole. Thank you. Separate them. So, but this creates a nice little bit of sparkle while continuing the line around the structure. And it's very easy to bend and manipulate and wrap around. And then adds a little bit of sparkle. A lot of people like a little bit of sparkle in their designs. What do you think? You like that? Thank you. I have one more. I've taken the ends and I've curled them so there's a little bit of weight and it's easy to manipulate. So there's just a little bit of a coil right on the ends there. So it's a nice little detail. Gives a little bit of weight there. And I think a nice little sparkle, and when the light shines down on it, is got a nice little accent, right? All right. Let's see, do we have anything? Oh yeah, we have one more over here, I think. This piece over here. So I accented this container with the mega bead wire, which is always so fun to unwrap. So they give us this mega bead wire on stage when we're doing the Philadelphia Flower Show. We have these little competitions over there called, and it's like Chopped. So there's 3 designers on stage, and we have to just make something. So they give us this bead wire, and here you are, you have like only a half an hour to make something, and you spend 20 minutes trying to get the bead wire unwrapped. So we have to come up with a better way for that. So again, I have a lot of groupings and textures and lines. And again, I've taken some of the this foxtail fern and stripped it just so that there's a little bit of line that you can see and just a little bit of weight with the tip of the fern at the top there. And usually when I do this with my classes, they're generally continuing education classes or enrichment classes, and the ladies are like horrified that I'm doing that. I'm ruining the plant, but I try and convince them that you can see this beautiful line. And I love that. I love just having the weight of the fern at the end and really extending the line out. And I think it really makes such a great dramatic impact for just a little bit of effort. So talking about the line, I think again, the positive space is just as important as the negative space all around there. And so now we have all the weight of the tips of the fern, the weight of the carnations with the foliage, again, cleaned off of the carnations. And same thing with the little hypericum berries. I like to clean off the foliage, but I like how the texture relates to the roundness of the beads. And again, certainly the color. So it's all looking like it's a kind of meant to be. What do you think? Yeah, thank you. I think I was going to add something to that one, though. I have a few things. I'm going to add to that. What do I do with them? Oh, here they are. You have. I made these little curly Q things. So I thought, well, add that into here. We've got the wire. Again, some more orchids. So I've just taken some of the snakeskin flat wire and made little curly cues, and now I've really extended out the line a lot more, right? Can you see that all right? Thank you. And I just used the little U-glue dots to secure the orchids onto there, and they'll last plenty long, I think. The fern variety? The foxtail? These calathea? Oh, this. Oh, because Nicole likes these. Anybody know what these are? Anybody see this? These have been around a little bit. I think they come out of Japan. I know it as crispy wave. Anybody know another name for this? Yes? Asplenium. Oh, wow. Asplenium. Asplenium, yeah. I'll remember that.
If you forget that, it's the Lucy flower because you got some asplenium to do.
See, BJ, he always will have those associations. I like that. So I will always forever remember I got some asplenium to do. So I love these allium because, again, a nice clean line, no foliage on these stems, and I feel like a California burger when I cut these. They smell like those onions, and I didn't have lunch, so. But we'll group these together. So these sort of radiate out from the top there. And again, just a few of these really make some drama, don't they? All right. Thank you very much. Let's see, what else should I talk about? Let's talk about this one over here. I love this armature. Again, Mary Linda made the armature for me, and she made it out of the fresh grapevine. So the container is really just the vessel to hold the armature. Isn't that cool? It's pretty. I love the colors, the textures, the lines, right? Very dramatic lines. There's a lot of movement going on in these lines. And the curly willow, the fresh grapevine really create a dynamic line here. And being a color-oriented designer, we have the natural browns and greens from the grapevine, and I wanted to add to that, to keep it very neutral in color. And so we pretty much, thanks to Vanessa here working in the workroom, doing procurement, I had some pull, let's just say. She's saying no, but they're very, very generous to me, And so we were able to grab a few pieces of this chocolate lace and some really pretty spray roses. And I love pheasant feathers, and I love the brown of the bark of the container of the vase. So I think it all works nice, don't you think? It's pretty, pretty. So again, adding some more accents to this composition. Just keep it very simple with the sparkle of the silver bullion and these skeleton leaves. Look really cool. Really cool. They add texture. We like the texture also. But the flowy line, very graceful, cascading line. You can identify all of these lines in those little sketches that I made for you in the handout. Cascading lines. There's also some sisal in here, because something came wrapped up in a little bit of sisal, and I said, Mary Linda, add some of this garbage into this arrangement. Something that was just tied. So we tore it apart and added it in for more texture. Add some accent. That's pretty ungraceful, don't you think? I wish I had brides that would want to carry something like this. I don't get those brides. But that's pretty. Isn't that a pretty arrangement? Thank you. Thank you. All right. Oh. So we have another piece over here. Yeah, we'll talk about this one on this end here. Adding some more bling. I got the bling here, so I covered the container with a little bit of accent of these little diamond wrapped yeah, it comes on a roll, so you can cut it as much as you want, and just dresses up the container a little bit, so it makes a nice accent. But from there, I want to consider, well, how is everything else going to work, and what kind of accent is going to bring that up into the arrangement. So I like the pussy willows, have that nice silvery color. So I think that all works well with the base. Again, the browns with the base of the background. But the lines, again, talking about the lines here, there's very dramatic lines in this composition, don't you think? Yeah. There's beautiful lines, the lines of the pussy willows and the curly willows. The curly willows have very dramatic contorted line going in the center. The pussy willow is a little bit straighter, but bowing out again, so your eye is coming up, and it all really frames everything in the composition. So your eye is coming up and then falls down again into the center, but the flax leaves, these folded flax leaves with the great pattern on them, the variegation, really kind of creates a dramatic line then going right through the composition. And I think that with the color of all of the other flowers really works beautifully, picking up all of the golds of the and reds of the Gerber daisies, and then you can see in here there's some great texture with the celosia, creating a nice base, surrounded by some reindeer moss, some orange reindeer moss. So the color all works really well. And again, the calla lilies, there's calla lilies, a couple on each side of this composition. So our eye follows the line up, creates a nice bow, and brings our eye up into the design, and creates some nice balance. And then again, our eye will fall down into the center of the composition. So let me see, somewhere in here, I have another little accent, and it might look better with the lights off, but you could see here, There you go. Just a little sort of added extra surprise there, which make a fun event piece, I think, right? Oh yeah, we forgot about. We didn't forget about these. We didn't. This is the extra added element here. We need these beads. Well, I had my lovely assistant Nicole bind these beads, these little mirrors onto the wire. And so again, we have a nice little accent with the mirror. And again, this works nicely with the whole composition, I think. The base with the little diamond wrap in there. And then, if you can imagine, if it were a little bit darker in the room, how the light would glow and reflect on the little mirrors there. So that makes a nice little accent. Thank you. Fun. All right, so we have, oh, there you go. There's the full effect. So we have this little piece here also. Can you identify the line in this arrangement? It's a very dynamic line, isn't it? I love it. I love it all, you know? I love the structural, architectural effects of line, and I love the cascading effects of this dramatic hanging amaranthus. It's so sexy, isn't it? That's what my event planner described it last week when I used some at a wedding. And the kiwi vine, oh my gosh, the kiwi vine is so contorted and so interesting. I really just love that. There's so much rhythm going on in this piece right here. Great lines. And again, with the calla lilies, we can massage those stems and bend the calla lilies and manipulate them. So we have this nice cascading line that is adding a little bit of contrast, the softness of the calla lilies against the brown contorted lines of the kiwi vine. And again, just taking some of this Milky Way and curling the ends of that. So there's lots of line going on in this piece, don't you think? Beautiful lines. And again, can you identify the accent in this? Those little butterflies, maybe? The butterflies, the little bit of bling wrap around the edge of the container there. And we bound the branches together with the silver bullion, so it all works together, right? We have the silver in the butterflies, and the silver then becomes not only functional, it's binding the material, but it's decorative mechanics. So we don't have to hide that. And we have another little accent piece here, this sweet little floral bouquet, little hand-tied bouquet. So we tuck that right into the center of our composition right there. Get that in, make sure that's secure, and make sure. So that's a nice little accent right there. Just a simple little hand-tied bouquet of roses. And then I have these little things that we'll add in also just to sort of carry out the line and the butterflies and give a bit of movement to the design. Create a little bit of depth. These pieces going above. I love this stuff. Do you know that this grass, flexigrass? I love this. so these just get woven right into the branches. The butterflies are just glued right on. Wow. That looks neat, don't you think? What do you think? Thank you. So some dramatic lines there. A lot of movement, right? Yeah, thank you. Let's see. I think we have one more piece to talk about, right? This piece? Yeah. So we have this big heavy bowl right here. And I left this open so that you could see the mechanics. Also, there's, again, that wire mesh from Oasis. And so we just balled that together, and I put some tape across to secure it. And then all of these flowers are just woven right into it. So again, basing all of the leaves and the sunflowers into that, and a little bit of rounded leaf of the aspidistra, and that creates some nice line also. Nice little curve here. And again, the cluster of the Lycopodium and the lines of those allium. But I wanted to add these allium as a nice contrast. So we'll cut those down a little bit and add these into the, let's see if I can weave those into the mesh. Get that in there. Is that going to stay? No. Oops. Let's see here. Get that in there. Might be heavy. Let's see. These are cool. These are very Seussical, aren't they? Very animated, very fun. Keep that line up there. And let's see. Well, we'll stick with those three for now. And we'll add a bit of orchids. Some of these beautiful Vanda orchids. I wanted to have these poke out.
Find the ones that haven't come.
Through these Aurelia leaves here. Those look pretty. And isn't that Spanish moss amazing? This Spanish moss, this fresh Spanish moss right here. So pretty.
Do I need that one?
I'll use this. There you go. Ooh. All right, what do you think so far? All right. So we're gonna add some more texture. I have this great wooden bowl here. So that's gonna sit right in here. Yeah, right in there. And then we'll add our little spheres to this. We have just a few some willow spears and some spheres that were coated with the Dusty Miller with some straight pins. So that's a nice little accent, don't you think? Yeah. Thank you. Use this one last piece right here. Right there. And then we have some more dynamic lines with this. This is a kiwi vine that is a Canoe Nielsen product. So it's got a little bit of green to it. And we'll weave that in. And create a little bit of dynamic line here. Oh, get that to stay. Get this to stay up. Maybe. All right. Well, that's not going too far. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have some line. We have some negative space, we have some accent, we have some positive space. I hope you guys have an excellent symposium here at X in Seattle. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you. And thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to share my passion for flowers and floral design with you all. Thank you, thank you. Oh my gosh.